Hi, this is Robert, Big Guy DIY. Today I got a little project. Uh, Friend of mine, neighbor, who lives on oxygen hose attached to him. When they lose power, have a backup generator, and their generator ran for 2 days, and then it stopped running. So I had asked them a bunch of questions. One was about their gas. That they were using. If the gas was ever stabilized. Did they check their oil? How long did the gas sit in the generator? So after all those questions were answered, I'm coming to the conclusion that it was water. The thing with E10 gas, because of the alcohol that's used in it now, absorbs water much quicker than the old gasoline, the old MTB gas we used to use. So if you don't stabilize your gas with like Stabil or trying to think of the other ones, Startron, Lucas, they all have stabilizers for the E10 gas. So once you fill up a jerry can gas tank, you should stabilize it. The gas begins to separate within 90 days. So that's the best thing to do. This summer has been a very humid summer, but a lack of rain. Very little rain, which is unusual for New England. Usually you'll have some good rainstorms periodically, especially in humid days. You'll have these pop-up rainstorms, but we haven't been getting those at all. And I have a Honda motor on my log splitter, and I've been battling issues with water getting into that gas. Even though it's brand new gas right from a jerry can, if I leave the gas tank even half empty for a couple of weeks, I'm already getting water in my line. So I have to keep draining the bowl. So my prediction for this generator, and I'll show you it, is I think they had water intrusion. There's a Honda generator, electric start. I mean, it's a good system. Now they said they already drained the gas, but I'll go through what I would normally do when working on something like this. When I think it's water, I'll go through and make sure that the fuel tank is definitely drained of fuel. Then I'm going to drain all the lines. If there's any fuel in the lines, drain them. Then here's your carburetor, which I'm going to drain that if there's any gas left in it. But here's one thing that's new to me, is this carburetor has electronic controls. So this carburetor on the top part here, I'll take this part out of the way. It's like an ECU, electronic control unit, or ECM, electronic control module. Controls the efficiency of this carburetor. So when I see that, I know it's definitely got to be water inside. So I'm just going to let my camera run as I go through this and make sure everything is running fine. This looks like it even has a fuel pump or something attached to it as well. We'll have to check that out. So here we go. Time to work on this thing. And I'll talk as I go along. I'll tell you what I'm looking at as I go along with this. So one thing, if you're ever working on the carb, is take lots of pictures. Well, take pictures. You're not always going to remember what you've done. I took pictures earlier of this, so I know what I'm looking at, and if I remove any parts, I know where they go. All right. Rags. If there's any gas, we're going to need rags to absorb the gas. Now, I'm not going to pull this carburetor off. I don't think it's necessary. As a matter of fact, I'm going to replug what they unplugged. And what there is there's a two-pin connection on the top, and then next to it is a 8-pin connection for the carb. With rubber boots that go over the connection. On the bottom there's a screw here. So I'm going to take that screw off and drain what's left in there. Actually, it's a nut, not a screw, a bolt. Alright. Size of it's 14 millimeters. And I can't get a regular wrench on it, so I'm going to change it to a 14 millimeter socket. So I keep all my sockets on a rack, both metric and American. Makes it a lot easier for organization. Plus, when I lose one, which happens, I'll know what I lost. Alright. Let this drip for a moment. I'm going to remove this piece off as well. That's what that unit is. Your filter goes over this, and then there's another cover that goes over that. They handed me the carburetor in parts, or not the carburetor, but parts taken off. Alright, so this is still filled with gas, and I'm going to show you what it looks like if you can see it. Sorry for the reflection, but it's foggy looking. So there's crap in this gas. So looks like we're going to do a little cleaning of the carb as well. So that's the inside of the bowl. But there's definitely, I don't know if you can see in the bottom here. I'll try to point using something. In the bottom here, I can see little like gel balls. Those will clog up the intake on a carburetor. Fluid. And of course, I am out of carburetor cleaner. So this will be to be continued, because I got to go buy some carburetor cleaner for this. Okay, we're back. Picked up some carburetor cleaner. I have cleaned the inside of this out where there were gel balls inside. So I know I was saying in the beginning most likely it was water. Well, apparently not. It was gel balls, which means bad gas that they put in here. So I am going to pull this carburetor off and clean it out, because more than likely there's a gel ball inside of the jet. What I'm doing here is the filter, or not filter, the gasket left piece of it was stuck on, so I'm just removing those pieces so it's smooth and it'll reseal when I put this bowl back in the carb. Alright, so I took it to a wheel grinder and just clean this leading edge off here. Not a wheel grinder, a wire brush. So, how this comes off. I have a clip here on the side. That's my gas line coming in. My fuel cock, shut-off cock, is already off. But I will use this to drain the gas out, if there is any in there. Let's see. Nope. Bone dry, it looks like, which is good. Next, I'll unplug these ECU plugs. There's a little tab on the top of them that you press down and they'll slide out. Take this off carefully. And there you go. So now you can see the ECM, ECU, whatever word you want to use to call it, but this is an electronic brain that controls fuel flow. So the cork gasket looks pretty good. So what we're going to do here is pull the float, and I can see I can put a screwdriver into the center here and pull the jet out. So we're going to clean that as well. So let me change the camera angle here. Old cookie sheets, never throw them away. They're the best, especially when it comes to taking apart a carburetor. Now again, if you're not familiar with taking a carb apart, take pictures. You know, swallow your manlyhood. Take pictures. That's the pin that holds the float. You guys are going to correct me on this one, but this controls the amount of gas coming into the carb. I'm not going to touch it. It is spring loaded and it just hangs. So you can see I can move it around. I'll let you look at the top part of it. So the needle just slides up and down. I think they call it a needle valve. I'm not sure. But let me get a screwdriver and take that out. Now what's in here is your jet. This comes out. Oh. Here we go. And there's a problem. I don't know if you could see it. Let me turn the light here on this. See if that distance is good enough. It is completely covered with gel. Here, I'll do this. See that? That's why she's not running. So I'm going to take this outside, squirt the carburetor fluid through it, the carb cleaner through it. The good thing is we caught this early, otherwise you'd have to take, there's a trick here. Of course I can't find it. So there's two things. You can take telephone cord, and you strip off the copper wire, or strip off the covering to the copper wire, and you can use that wire to go into these holes in the jetting, or you can take any kind of wire brush, cut off one of these wires, and that too can go through it. That's if this gel hardened, and it hasn't. So I think we might be able to get away with just using the carb cleaner. I'll be back. Now, one thing to know if these holes are not plugged is hold it up to a light up high and see if you can see through the holes. And I see one hole I can't. So using this wire brush, We'll just open that hole up. So here's that jetting. Get it to focus. There. Oop, I had it. Come on, focus. So here's your jetting. Those are the holes that, come on, focus. Those are the holes you do not want plugged. And those were plugged with the gel, which is bad gasoline. So now we're going to take the carb cleaner, and I can see gel in here, and we're going to squirt it in these two holes here, this hole and this hole, and the gas will, or not the gas, the carb cleaner will come squirting out of there and get rid of that gel. I'm also going to spray it in where the gas goes in too. I do this outside because the odor from carburetor cleaner or gasoline, because I work in my garage, goes through my floor and I smell it in the bedroom, and my wife goes berserk, which I don't blame her. It's not the most pleasant smell sometimes. I'll be back in a moment. So what I'm doing is I'm just looking at the guy. This is a very new generator. So I'm just looking through the carburetor, see if there's any junk in there, and that I got it all out. Now sometimes I'll use the air compressor to blow things out, but when my compressor runs, it's going to be so loud that you're not going to hear anything. So I'm just going to rely on this stuff. All right. I think we're good. Now the needle, I didn't see it come out, okay, but I know the needle goes in one way. I mean, you could put it in the wrong way quite easily, but there's a top to it that stops it from going all the way in, okay. When the needle's in, looking through the butterfly, you should see able to, just the tip of this needle, that should be popping up inside, which I probably can't show it, but right in the center of the butterfly is where the needle's sticking up, so I know it's in correctly. Next is this. This only goes in one way because it has a threaded, not threaded, it has the cut on the top for the flathead screwdriver to screw it in. So I'll screw this back in. Don't use grease or anything like that on a carburetor. Grease will just plug everything back up again. Put the float back on, plus the axle. Alright, so we're good there. Now when the carburetor is sitting on the generator, it's sitting like this, so this part here is facing out. This is where my air filter attaches. So I'm going to reattach the bowl to this where it was the way it was attached when I took it off. Where's my... On this bolt there's a small O-ring, so you want to be sure you don't lose that or it's not damaged. Alright, so if my carb is on here like this turned out like so. This is a drain screw here, so you can drain the bowl without undoing the nut on the bottom. So as the carb sits in here, I want this to be facing out. Make this snug. And let's reinstall. Do my plugs. Plugs only connect one way. Before I attach the fuel line, just want to look inside the tank. Inside the tank here, I have a filter, screen filter. collecting junk as it goes in, and sure enough, it's full of junk. So that's the screen on their light. I have to fix that. It's all full of stuff, so we're going to clean this out as well. When I pulled that screen out, I had this in there. It wasn't sitting like it was supposed to. It's supposed to sit right into the screen. It kind of presses it to hold its shape, but it wasn't done correctly. So we'll fix that. That's back together. So reattach our fuel line. Seeing if there's any more gas that may come out. Yeah, there we go. Where the gas shutoff valve is at the lower part of the tank. So as I tip this back, I'm getting every drip of gas, literally speaking. Reattach our fuel line. Reattach our front. And it looks like there's a clip on the back of this front that actually holds fuel line. We attach our hose in the front here to our OHV valve cover. I'm going to leave this off because I want to pull the spark plug out and just make sure that's clean. So now I have to go through their bag of stuff that they gave me, that they took off this car. Figure out what goes where. We have 2 nuts, bolt. Now, like I said, when they handed this to me, this thing was apart. So I'm looking at it and seeing how it's reassembled. So I got 6 bolts, 1 odd bolt, 2 nuts. Alright, looking at the side, I just figured it out. Let me broaden the view here. So I said I had 6 bolts, 1 odd bolt, 2 nuts. So looking at this here, right there, that tells me that's where my odd bolt goes. So this goes in like this. Goes up and down like so. So my 2 nuts, they're going to go here. Here are my 6 bolts. They're going to hold this platform in. The odd length bolt is going on the bottom. Now I got this hose connection. And guess what? That's my hose connection right there. So let's reassemble it. I'm sure there's torque specs for the nuts that are holding the carb on. I don't have that information, and the way I tend to do things, I know it's not always the best way, but it's just to make sure it's snug. That's all. Not super tight. You don't crank on it because this is plastic here. You don't want to break it. You just want it really snug. What is snug? When you feel it starting to not turn anymore, and when you get to that point, you just give it a little tweak, and then you're done. And you make sure both sides are about the same. That way you have even pressure on the gasket. Both gaskets, the one here in the front, which is metal with a rubber insert, and then the back one, which is a paper type gasket. Alright, now for the screen front. Looks like it goes on this way. Have I been handed motors taken apart like this before? Yes. I used to get Boston Whalers. The owner would take the all the woodwork out, and it'd be like a 13-foot Boston Whaler or a 15-footer Boston Whaler, and they'd redo all the wood, but then they forgot how the wood went back in, and they'd come in with a few cardboard boxes filled with the wooden pieces. Filled with the wooden pieces, saying, you think you can put this together? Yeah, sure. I just kind of look at things and I do reverse engineering. I do that a lot. It's something I learned from my dad. He was an electrical engineer. I went to school, one of the multiple degrees. One of the 3 degrees I got it in electrical engineering. No, I didn't. I got it in electronic engineering. I don't even know what I got it in. I like the intricacy of things and how they're put together and taken apart. You know, there's a program on Discovery Channel called How Things Are Made. I don't know, it was a great program. Manufacturing is a pretty wild thing to see. It's too bad so much of it has left the U.S., but it's the mighty dollar. It's nothing to do with the skill set the U.S. person, the Americans. Americans are great. But profits come first, unfortunately. Now during this pandemic, we're learning the hard way, and we should maybe not have pushed all of our manufacturing overseas. Or maybe we should have kept some of it here. I gotta change this. The ratchet works, but this bar is in the way. So I just go to like a screwdriver type handle, and then I can go right in a lot easier. Again, I'm not making these bolts extremely tight, just real snug. But yeah, this pandemic has wreaked havoc on our country. But it's definitely not a hoax. The reason I say that is because I lost 2 friends to the virus. One was a very, very, very close friend. In one of my earlier videos, I dedicated it to him. At that time, we didn't know he was infected, but after a few of us were tested, after getting together just after his funeral, several of us tested positive. And that was before the virus became a pandemic. Alright. Nope, didn't think so. Somewhere I put my sockets down. This is the last bolt to go in. Voila. So this is the last hose pinch. Way these work is you squeeze them together so they're in line. They're kind of crappy, but cost saving, cost saving. Doesn't even pinch the hose, but it's more of an air vent than anything else. All right. Face it down. I'm just verifying everything is together. Let's pull that plug out. How do I know? I don't remember which way to turn something. Now, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Everyone thinks they know that, but believe it or not, a lot of people don't. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. You know, light here, it's not behaving. There we go. Spark plug. Well, up until it stopped running, it's been burning really clean. A little blackened around the outside. The top here is a very light brown, but there's no gunk whatsoever on it. I don't know if I had it in the camera or not, so I'm lowering it so I do. Let's see here. How's that? So black around the edges, very light tan on the tip. That's a good burning spark plug. So I'm just going to throw it on my brush, wire brush, just clean it up so we'll have a good clean spark. And there we go, as good as new. Spark plugs also have tension, a certain tension, pounds per square inch. But I do so many of them, I don't bother. I just do it where it goes snug. So here the spark plug bottomed out, not bottomed out, it tightened. So now I'm just gonna put my ratchet on it, give it a good turn. That's it. She's done. Before I attach that, this is anti-seize dielectric grease. So it's for anything electrical, spark plugs, bulbs. You can use it on nuts and bolts. I use it just on the tip of the plug. And it just helps prevent any corrosion from taking place. And it gives a good connection between the spark plug wire and the spark plug. We call it connectivity. So next, air filter. Cover. All right, and we're done. So I'm going to do tomorrow morning. So I'm going to put gas into this and run it. Choke. Open. Run it. And let it run for a while to be sure that we got all the gel gunk out of there. All the gas that I buy, I always stabilize it. Let me show you the stabilizers. There's quite a few out there. The ones I like to buy a lot, and I don't have it right now, is Startron. You can get that anywhere. It's a blue bottle, and it's what they usually see it in like 8 or 16 ounce things, and it's like a small bottle like this will treat 80 gallons. I think it is a fuel. I found Startron to be the best personally. I'm not promoting it, I'm just saying from my experience between slew of snowmobiles, a boat, I don't know how many cars, 4 or 5 cars, garden tractor, push mower, I mean everything. I got so many motors in this house, it's ridiculous. But I found that to work the best. Other products I don't mind is Lucas ethanol fuel conditioner stabilizer is good. This is the most popular one. This works for any jerry can you're going to fill up with gas. Use this stuff. But if you own a boat that's near water, here you go. This one bottle which is 8 fluid ounces will treat 80 gallons. And it has a built-in measuring cup. One thing I like about the bill, what I'll do is, if I run out of this and I get Startron, I'll put the Startron on the side here because I got this measuring cup. And you just squeeze it, get the amount that you need, and way to go. So, saying that, I am going to put some into their tank because I know they're going to forget to. So this tank here holds, let's see, it doesn't tell me, of course. I thought it might be on a label on it. No. My guess is probably 5 gallons, 4 gallons. So this one here keeps fuel fresh for up to 24 months. I would never go by that. 1 year. If you don't use a fuel by 1 year from your jerry can, put it in your automobile. It'll burn it. I want to know. Oh, 1 ounce treats up to 2.5 gallons. So I'm going to put in two ounces. Squeeze it. That's 1 ounce. Squeeze it again. 2 ounces. It's okay if you put a little too much in it. Never hurts. It'll burn off. And guess what I'm doing? Putting a little extra in there. Now I'm gonna top this tank off tomorrow. That way they have a full tank of fuel. And next time they lose power, the woman's husband will be safe and won't lose oxygen. That's a scary thing to do. So, any questions? Post them below. And I will see you tomorrow morning when I run this thing. Alright, good morning. Back next day, so we're going to continue working on this generator. So I'll turn the camera around. So, everything's back together. I'm not going to put gas into this tank. I've changed my mind after thinking about it last night. So what I'm going to do is, I have this auxiliary tank. It's used for outboard motors for boats, but I keep it so I can run other motors off it if I want to put in some kind of stabilizing fuel or fogging fuel or anything like that. So I'm actually going to run that off this. So I'm going to hook up a fuel line from here to the fuel cock right here. This is the shut-off valve from the tank itself. So instead of having gas in here that could sit there for a couple of years, we're just going to disconnect fuel line right here. That runs right to the carb, and I'm going to make some connections to go into this. So that's what I'm going to work on next here. Is fabricating something that will work. I was tinkering earlier with what I wanted to do, and so I kind of figured it out. This is a fuel line with a fuel bulb here, arrow showing the direction of the fuel. So what I need to do is, this end's going to attach to my tank. Auxiliary tank here. And we're going to do a hose clamp on there. I got a kit here full of different hose clamps. Which size is the best size? The one that you can get over the hose. So somewhere, oh. So I want to make sure I got the right direction in. Here's my arrow pointing away from the tank, so we know we got this correct for here. So I'll just put my hose clamp on there. Now here's the interesting thing. It's where you gotta play around. I save a can here full of fuel hoses. So whenever I'm working on an engine, I save all these hoses from doing different motor carburetors. And I also save different fittings. On things that I work on, because you never know. So this is the situation I have. The hose on here, you can see it's pretty small. So last night I was going through my connections, and this is the right connection for this hose. But here's the problem, or here's the, it's not a problem, here's the riddle. How do you connect this end to the fuel end? Well, this here is what they call a female end. This is the male end. It screws in, as you can see. But here's the next problem. This is too small. I wanted to get this size and just clamp it. So what I'm going to do here is I took a fuel line and I cut an edge off it, and I'm going to insert this fuel line. The outside diameter happens to be just a pinch bigger than the inside diameter of my fuel line. Using a screwdriver, I'm going to kind of force it in but not punch a hole in it. Maybe even twist it a little to get it in there far enough. So that's what I have. Alright. Next I'm going to get a knife. And I'm going to cut this right here. Then I'm going to continue pushing this piece in. Okay. Why? This end here fits into the hose I'm pushing in. So to get a good tight fit, I'm using the additional fuel hose to take up the space that I'm lacking. Now, if you just push this in, clamp it, there we go. Now I have an end that'll connect to the generator. I just want to make sure this is tight. I know some people will put threader on here. you know, like the white tape, plumbing tape. But I'm not going to do that because we're just doing something that's very temporary. If it drips a little, so what? That's fine. Need another wrench. And there we go. So now you can see how I made this work. So we're going to take this now and just throw this up on top. Connect it here. Let me show you. So that's my fuel line connection. I am going to move this clamp over. There. Alright. So, the next shot we'll move this outside. Put some gasoline in here. And give it a start. Alright. We have it set up now. Show you my connection again. Carb is all put back together. So, what I did is I put some gas in here. The auxiliary tank. Now, one thing is, I know this generator may sit for a week. It may sit for 2 years. I don't know. But one thing I've always learned is you always want to try to oil the carburetor a little. So for example, when you are, we call it fogging. So when you're putting a motor into hibernation, you fog the carburetor. And what that does is it puts oil in there so things don't get sticky or get stuck and don't move. So one thing I like to use is Marvel Mystery Oil. And I'm just going to put very little in here. And Marvel Mystery Oil is an oil enhancer and fuel treatment. So the carburetor will get a little, what's the word I'm looking for? We'll get a little skin of oil through it, which is good for storage. So here's my bulb, arrows pointing towards the engine. Give this a squeeze. Oops. On, off. All right. Definitely got gas in there. Let's see if she starts. There we go. Stepping away from the motor because it's a little loud, so hopefully you can hear me. So that's it. It was gel. So they put in bad gas into the system. So I just removed that gel and they just jerry-rigged fuel connection to connect to the motor. So I'm going to let this run for about 15-20 minutes and then deliver it back to the owner. Hopefully we don't lose any power, because this owner needs this, and see lives on oxygen being attached to him. Alright, any questions, go ahead and rifle them to me. Any comments below, give me a thumbs up. And this is Big Guy DIY, Robert, signing off. Have a good one.